Roswell, Alien Interview, Chapter 15, My Interrogation. Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, Personal Note. The next morning I was escorted from my quarters under guard of 4 MPs to the interview room. Errol's overstuffed chair had been removed from the room and replaced by a small desk and several office chairs. I was asked to sit down and wait to be interviewed. After a few minutes, Dr. Wilcox came into the office together with another man wearing a plain business suit. The man introduced himself as John Reed. Dr. Wilcox explained to me that Mr. Reed had been flown in from Chicago at the request of my superior officers to conduct a lie detector test on me. My surprise at this statement was so obvious that Dr. Wilcox noticed that I was obviously taken aback and insulted at the insinuation that I had ever lied about anything. Nonetheless, Mr. Reed began to set up his polygraph device on the desk next to my chair, while Dr. Wilcox continued to explain in a calm voice that the test was being administered for my own protection. Since all the interviews with the alien had been conducted telepathically, and that Errol had decided to read and attest that the typed transcripts were accurate, that the truth and accuracy of the statements contained in the transcripts depended entirely upon my personal word alone, there was no other reliable way to test the accuracy of the transcripts without submitting me to a battery of tests and psychological examinations to determine, in the opinion of experts, meaning himself, whether the transcripts should be taken seriously or not. The tone of his voice said very clearly, or dismissed as the delusional ranting of a mere woman. Mr. Reed proceeded to strap a rubber tube around my chest, as well as an ordinary blood pressure cutoff around my upper arm. Then he placed electrodes on the fingers and surfaces of my hands. He explained that he would be very objective during the interview because he had been thoroughly trained in scientific interrogation. This training was supposed to make his interrogation free of human error. Mr. Reed explained to me that in response to the questions he and Dr. Wilcox were going to ask me, that actual physiological changes would be transmitted through a small panel unit. The readings would then be tracked on moving graph paper, which he placed beside the machine on the desk. The parallel graphs on the paper would then be correlated and interpreted by Mr. Reed with the expert assistance of Dr. Wilcox to determine whether or not I was lying. Both Mr. Reed and Dr. Wilcox asked me a series of innocuous questions to begin, which advanced into a more pointed interrogation about my interviews with Errol. Here's what I remember about the questions. "What is your name?" "Matilda O'Donnell," I replied. "What is your date of birth?" "June 12th, 1924, I said. "What is your age?" 23. "Where were you born?" "Los Angeles, California," I said, and so on and so forth. "Are you able to communicate by telepathy?" "No, I have never been able to do this with anyone except Errol," I said. "Were any of the statements you made to the stenographer falsified?" "No," I answered. "Have you intentionally or unintentionally imagined or fabricated any of the communication you claim to have had with the alien?" "No, of course not," I said. "Are you intentionally attempting to deceive anyone?" "No." "Are you attempting to obstruct this test?" "No." "What color are your eyes?" "Blue." "Are you Catholic?" "Yes." "Would you tell the same stories to your parish priest in a Catholic church confessional that you told the stenographer here at the base?" "Yes." "Are you trying to hide anything from us?" "No, nothing." "Do you believe everything the alien communicated to you?" "Yes." "Do you consider yourself to be a gullible person?" "No." The questions continued in this manner for more than an hour. Finally, I was unhooked from the polygraph machine and allowed to return to my quarters, still under guard by the MPs. Later in the afternoon, I returned to the interview room. This time the desk was replaced by a hospital gurney. Dr. Wilcox was accompanied by a staff nurse this time. He asked me to lie down on the gurney. He said that he had been requested to ask me the same series of questions that I answered for the lie detector test. This time, however, I would respond to the questions under the influence of a truth serum known as sodium pentothal. As a trained surgical nurse, I was familiar with this barbiturate drug, as it was sometimes used as an anesthetic. Dr. Wilcox asked me if I had any objection to submitting to such a test. I told him I had nothing to hide. I cannot recall anything about this interview. I assumed that when I finished answering the questions, I was escorted back to my room by the MPs, with their assistance this time, as I was too wobbly and woozy from the drug to navigate by myself. However, I had a very peaceful sleep that night. Apparently neither of these interrogations yielded any suspicious results, as I was not asked any more questions after that. Thankfully, I was left alone during the rest of my time at the base.